in addition to this, as long as we're on, before we leave the topic of commercial real estate, if we could just lump, I guess, residential real estate in there as well. We've had BlackRock and other large REITs buying up to 25% of the real estate in some areas of the country that were in unprecedented valuations. And we've interviewed some analysts in that regards who have said that generally it's those that are on the top of the food chain that have the most strategic oversight of what's coming. They're going to want to get out first before the moms and the pops of the world figure it out, and that they'll be the last holdouts. Unfortunately, the little man and gal will be the last holdouts, thinking that real estate always goes up. You just write out the dips. And you'll always find a willing buyer later and all that. In your view, what is the state of reality in the real estate market from a inability of closures to happen? We just spoke with a realtor this week who said that she hasn't made a single deal this year, which is absolutely unheard of for her. And she had to take on a second job, et cetera. We've talked to mortgage brokers who said they haven't written a deal this year. So anyway, your view of where we're at in this rollover of you could start with commercial, which is, I guess, where you started, and then look at residential as well, real estate, and see where you think we're at in that process and who's getting out first and what comes next.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. The volume of, and I'm talking about single family, about housing at this point. The housing market, the volume has collapsed. Volume of deals going to close are at 50% or slightly less than 50% of what it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. So the volume has collapsed. And I've spoken on this, I've written on this, I've posted articles on this on my website. Price always follows volume. If you're at normal valuations, as opposed to the astronomical valuations that we're at now, when volume collapses, the price follows. And that's, you're seeing that. Look, I look at many parts of Florida. You're in Florida, right, Dunnigan? Yeah, look at Florida. Florida's has quite a few sectors where people can't sell, and people are walking away either because of taxes or insurance, or they've lost a job. You've seen it, I've seen it, we've talked about this, the precious metals area. I've never in my entire career seen so much selling, and now the selling has come in size. And the bids compared to spot are poor. The bids are actually below spot, but yet people are still selling. And that tells me they're selling because in many cases they need to. They need to sell to raise cash to continue to go forward. So what has hit the precious metals sector is hitting the housing market. I think the best area to look in the housing market are starter homes. If you look at the average price of starter homes nationwide, the average person cannot afford to buy those. And if you gut the foundation of a market, any market, you basically gut that market. Now, are they going to feel it immediately in $3 million, $5 million houses? No. But in the $250,000, $350,000 starter home range, you have people with these higher interest rates and an economy that has done nowhere near as well as what they have told us, and unemployment much greater than what they've told us. That reality is coming through the final numbers of closings on houses. And again, just look at the starter home market. There, the average person, the average buyer cannot afford a starter home. So, one of three things has to happen. Either interest rates have to come down drastically, people have to start making more money, or simply the prices have to come down. And history shows us that after bubbles form, and after they burst, the prices collapse. And I think that's, we're right there. The pin is hitting the balloon right now.
Yeah, you just touched on something I wanted to drill into a little bit, and that's the hiding of inflation. We've known for years that there's been denial of the reality of inflation by the official numbers, as John Williams from shadowstats.com has come on our channel multiple times and talked about the CP lie, talking about how they just keep whatever it takes to cook the books to make it look like it's not as bad as it is. But then there's also people who've been aware of shrinkflation, where the packages that they would buy anything in are maybe looking the same, but the inside they got cardboard baffles to make the box half empties. They're willing to ship and truck around the country half empty boxes in order to make it look like the things aren't shrinking on the shelf, even though they are, containing fewer ingredients. But then we've also got the passing on of fees. You've got vendors all over now saying you're going to pay the 3% or 4% convenience fee if you're going to use a charge card. We're not going to eat that anymore because, and they're not saying is we can't afford to, and we just can't hide this any longer. You're going to start bearing those costs up front. But this whole culture of hiding and denying, even officially to the point of repackaging your product and shrinking it down to avoid the reality of inflation is one of the areas that's biting people really hard. And then also you mentioned insurance and taxes. We definitely have neighbors and acquaintances who are actually having to sell their properties, relocate that just to get out from underneath unbearable burdens of both taxes and insurance. Any further thoughts from you on the hiding of inflation and how it can no longer be hidden, and how that bites when the reality gets into the head of people and they realize that the currency is what's being destroyed right from within their accounts and their earnings and their retirements, et cetera?
Yeah, I guess my thought on that is we've had inflation all along. Go back to from 1982 when inflation supposedly peaked. We've had inflation of asset values, of asset pricing. We've had, the stock market go up. We've had real estate go up. We've had asset prices explode in valuation levels, if you will. That's inflation. That was caused by the creation of money supply and the creation of credit. So that was inflation, but the average person views that as good inflation because, my hamburger still only costs $2 or $3, but my $250,000 house is now $1 million. My portfolio that I put, $100,000 in, that's $1 million. It's all good stuff, and you'll hear them start chanting USA, USA. Where we are now is we've reached a debt saturation level. So the inflation that they can push into asset prices it's stopped. It's stopped, and you're starting to see that roll over. So that inflation coming down is obviously not going to be good as thought of by the average person. It's we're also, and since COVID unmasked the supply chains, since COVID, and obviously the money that was put into the system during COVID, we've had inflation of stuff we need. And this goes back to what I talked about for at least 10 years, that when the final chapters are written, you're going to watch deflation of the things we have and inflation of the things we need. It's a double whammy. Your cost to live goes up, but your ability to pay for that lifestyle with your assets shrinks. And that's where we are now. And it's I guess the best way to explain it is it's the end of a Ponzi scheme, because the amount of debt outstanding, or the amount of debt that can and needs to be issued. When I say needs to, debt needs to be issued at higher and higher levels, exponentially higher levels, in order to feed the Ponzi. And what you're having here is you're watching the new credit, the new funds come into the Ponzi shrink. And at the same time, which I think is interesting, I have not heard really hardly anybody talk about this, but all of this government waste that they're uncovering, billions, hundreds of billions, over, $1 trillion, that's no longer going to be coming into the system. So that money that had continually flowed into the system, now all of a sudden those spigots are getting shut off. So I think what you're going to be looking at is asset values and the real economy just going into full-on shrink mode.